Are you a filmmaker or content creator with a vision that demands the best? Then look no further than IPGRentals.com, the ultimate destination for audio, video, lighting, drones, and support gear for your productions. At IPG Rentals, we believe in the power of collaboration. Our gear becomes an extension of your creativity, bringing your vision to life. And with our tagline, Our Gear, Your Vision, we're not just a rental service, we're your production partner. Why choose IPG Rentals, you may ask? Easy. We bring quality, reliability, and an extensive range of top-notch equipment. From industry-standard cameras and audio equipment to state-of-the-art lighting and drones, our gear is meticulously maintained to ensure you get the best results every time. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.ipgrentals.com. Our Gear, Your Vision. Welcome to Media Hub. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Media Hub. I'm your host, Dondi Sanchez, and today we're joined by Beth Forbes, a seasoned project manager known for her exceptional skills in live events. She has a knack for managing and leading groups towards successful collective goals in all her projects, from theatrical stage management to becoming a versatile expert in project management, technical direction, production, and much, much more. Beth's understanding of event execution is unparalleled. So join us as we unveil Beth's incredible career in the live events industry. Beth, how you doing?
Hey, great. How are you? Thank you for that opening.
No problem. Beth, just so our viewers know, where are you at now? Where are you calling in from?
I am calling from Lake Stevens, Washington. We live northeast of Seattle up in a little town called Granite Falls, and I'm calling in from kind of a third of the way towards Seattle from our home. So,
well, and the good thing for in the job that you have or the role that you play, you basically could live anywhere. All you need is a major airport.
That's correct. Yep. Honestly, my entire career, Dondi, I've lived almost an hour away from an airport. When I lived in Vegas for the short stint I did, it was the closest airport I had lived to probably since I was 20.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, I know you have a busy schedule, and when I called you, I was so happy that you said yes to doing this, because I think you have a lot of valuable insight and information that you could, give our viewers, especially like we were talking about off camera. There's not a lot of women in the position and the role that you play in your job. And it's impressive. I got to say, not being a woman, it's the job that you do, and you're making it possible, saying, yeah, you know what? I can do this. A woman can do this, no problem. Because you do pretty big shows. You don't do small shows. I gotta say that, and the shows they could be hectic. They could be fire after fire after fire, but you handle it pretty well. So I gotta commend you on that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on it.
Well, thank you for that, Dondi. And you're right. I have always stood up to the challenge, and I've always opted for the harder jobs, the ones that were going to push my limits, the ones that were going to make me grow. I've taken on situations where I was the youngest person on the crew and the only girl, and put in a position where I needed to lead. And that's not easy. But I was excited to use all of my skills that I had started honing in on in my teens in the theater, to really gain some success, but also gain respect and a really positive decorum with crews. That's not easily done when you're 27 telling a 56-year-old man something that I need done.
Right.
And so I've always approached things with grace, and it's been a very rewarding journey. It's been a very challenging journey, but it's been a very fun journey too. So
right. So talking about your journey, like, how did you get into the industry? Tell us the steps you did to get where you are.
Well, like many of us, we were theater kids, right? So I started in the Grand Rapids community theater industry, I suppose, around 12 years old. I wanted to act. I wanted to be a performer. I was dead set on going to school for acting, but also found a whole lot of fun in working backstage. By the time I was about 15, I started to stage manage shows. And in theater, stage managing is also a little bit like show calling in the corporate industry. So you get that deck manager / show caller skill set. And I was doing it as a sophomore in high school. By the time I was a senior, I was doing some larger shows as the stage manager for Grand Rapids Civic Theater. And shortly after I turned 18, I was stage managing Sweeney Todd. And the lighting designer, his name is Keith Oberfeld. Many people might know who he is in this industry. He approached me and said, "Have you ever thought about doing corporate work?" And I was like, "What's corporate work?" Right. And he said, "Well, it's this." He kind of looked at all the lighting and he went, "Well, it's this. You just make a lot more money." And I was like, "And where's the sign-up sheet for that?"
Absolutely. So it's so funny how so many of us don't know what corporate work is in the beginning of our career.
Right. So he started bringing me on the road shortly after that as a deck manager or a PA or whatever role he could find for me. And then from there, I gained a few more mentors. Mike Golding is another one. He hired me a couple years after that to do AV work for, I don't know, 67 breakouts in New Orleans. And I was like, "Goldie, you know I've never set up a projector, right?" And he went, "I do know that." He goes, "But I know you're going to show up on time, you're going to work hard, and you're going to ask questions." He said, "That's all I need. Everything else is trainable." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm booking a flight to New Orleans then." So that was where I was birthed into AV work, was on a show like that. And my career has also taken me on the other side of corporate events, on the planning and event design and management side, where my third mentor, Dusty Norsworthy from behind the scenes, she picked me up and sort of put me in a position where at 23, 24 years old, I was managing multi-million-dollar budgets. Same thing. I'm like, I've never managed a multi-million-dollar budget before. And she said one of the same things that Goldie said was, "You're going to show up, you're going to work hard, and you're going to ask questions." And I was like, also true. So, I was thrown in the deep end by 3 people.
I know, but that's what it takes to be successful in this career is attitude, worth ethic, right? And your values. It's because obviously you care about the work you do, then that's what they see.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? How you carry yourself, the work that you perform, you care about all that. And that's what it takes in this industry to succeed. Because like they said, everything else is teachable.
Absolutely. And the only thing I would add to that, the fourth finger I would hold up was you treat people with respect. The only way to gain respect is to give it. And that was one thing that I carried as a priority in my position, no matter where I was in the industry. Because it's not easy to come in being the youngest. It's not easy to come in telling guys that are old enough to be your dad what needs to get done and how you need it to get done. And I cut my teeth on those types of interactions on the auto show floor, which is an incredibly intense place with a lot of union jurisdictional red tape. And depending on the city, it comes with a lot of personalities. And I'm so grateful that I stepped up to that challenge and volunteered to join the majors, because that was quite honestly where I really learned how to deal with challenging situations that required grace under fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like what pushes you or what drives you is the harder the job is and the more it's going to challenge you is what drives you more. It's like you run towards that. No, I want that show. I want the harder one. Don't give me the easy one. Give me the hardest one that's going to be the most difficult. That's the one I want.
Yeah, I had a dialogue during COVID where I was one of the first people to fly out and do a studio show for L&G. And when we got there, you know, you're in the heart of this pandemic and everyone's entire livelihoods had been put on death row for a minute, figuratively speaking. But we all pivoted and we figured out how to make it work, and we went full fledged into virtual. And here we were at this studio, and the emotional pendulum that we had all been on was very apparent. And one of the things we got to talking about was how we got to where we were in the industry. And one of the ways that I assimilated myself to how I got to where I am is I sarcastically said, I've been scaling walls with my teeth since I was 22. And I said it as kind of a joke, but there's part of that that's a little true.
Well, I mean, look, the hard work pays off. You could say that, right? Because like you said, look at where you are. If you compare yourself with your age, being a woman and the jobs that you have, you don't see that. I know I said that before, but that's just the way it is, you know? But you're proving that it is possible.
Absolutely. And there are others that are as well. I can't tell you how grateful to get these phone calls where you say, hey, we recognize where you are in the industry and we wanted to know if you'd like to help us pay it forward. And to me, there's no greater joy. It's so nice to be in the position I am and to know that I've earned it, but also to start watching other folks do it. And you mentioned women. So I'm going to pick a story about a young woman who I very much admire and am proud of. Her name is Lena Eldridge. I just got off of a very taxing show where she was my lead comm technician. And just prior to loadout, I approached her and said, I remember your very first gig as an audio technician. You were wide-eyed and terrified to hang this massive array of PA alongside a very seasoned A2. And now, just a few years later, you lost your full-time job due to a pandemic. You pivoted to virtual. You honed in your expertise to be one of the best comm technicians I know. And now you're my first phone call. And I just had to tell her, this isn't me being condescending, but I am so proud of you.
Yeah.
Because she's worked really hard to get to where she is. And I see a lot of what I did to get where I am in her story. And so to be able to be on interviews like this, where I get to share my story and encourage other young men and women
right
to get better and keep on and get successful and become successful. And if there's something I can do to help or pay it forward, there's no question in my mind that I will show up to do that.
Absolutely. So let's jump into it. Let's let the viewers know exactly what a project manager is. Like what's your role in your jobs? What do you have to do? Describe your responsibilities.
Sure. These days, I am largely a kind of an industry-leading technical director or technical producer. I've done it for TV. I've done it for AR/XR. I've done it for corporate. I've done it for live, you name it. But the root of all of the roles that I play and have played is project management. So regardless of what the title is, project management is in my blood. It is my blood type in some ways. And project management, it can be a lot of different things. But to me, there are a few principles that I consistently lean on to guarantee success in my projects. One of them is to keep reality in line with budget and creative in line with reality. And that's sometimes hard to do. But as a project manager, you have to be that one that says, are we putting a project together that's realistic? Can we do what we say we can with the resources we have and the time that we have to put it in? And if not, how do we vector toward doing as much of it as we can without killing anybody?
I got a quick question there.
Yeah,
Not to cut you off, but I got a quick question because as you're saying that, I'm like, I wonder how much input she has with the salespeople at this point. Because you bring up a very good point. Because salespeople will be selling anything. They'll be like, oh yeah, we can do this and that and this, and then technically you're like, how am I going to do this? How are we going to make
Right.
this happen? You know,
Right.
so I get the part where, like, yeah, you're up here. Let's bring you back down to reality. Because that's
Yeah.
to see a show that way, especially the big shows that you do. You know, there's a lot of money spent in these shows. A lot of money spent in these shows. Okay, so that's a very good point to, as a project manager, to look at the whole detail, not just like, oh, so we're going to need this and this and that, but you're making everybody happy. You have to make the end client happy, but you also have to make your boss happy, coming in budget, right? And collaborating the two together to make the full show just happen. You know, where everybody's
100%.
happy.
Yeah. I have a great deal of respect for the producers that call a technical director and say, hey, I'm bidding on this. I'd like your input. Because there are times as a technical director that you come in and say, so that bucket of money you had over here is not going to cover the design over here.
Right.
And it's part of being that collaborative partner where I say a collaborative and a thoughtful partner, because I'm not trying to tell somebody no, but I also sometimes have to be the person on the team that says, we can absolutely do this. We need another load-in day. We need catered meals, and we need split shifts or whatever. But I never say we can't do that and here's why. It's sure we can do that, but these are some of the things it's going to take to get there. Do we want to do that? So while I may or may not be able to impact what is sold, I do get the privilege and the opportunity to impact how it's delivered, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, because it's like, I'm not saying no, it's no, but we can do this. You're giving them another avenue. You're giving them another way. You're just not saying, nope, we can't do it, and move on. It's like, no, but we can do this. Or no, and
100%.
we can do this. Yeah.
100%. That's a really awesome idea. It's going to take a little more time and a lot more people, but it's a really awesome idea.
Right. I guess I would have to say you have to be a good people person for this job, because that was going to be my next question. It's like, what characteristics should a person have to be a good project manager?
The ones that I lean on the most, Dondi, are my ability to clearly communicate, my ability to organize information in order for it to be properly delivered and digested, and to be aware of the holistic picture that you're a part of. Because sometimes my scope of work is part of a show. Like, for example, when you and I did HP earlier this year, I was the LMG project manager for the keynote, but I was doing video. However, I know that my scope of work impacts lighting, audio, comm, LED, scenic. All of the other departments are impacted by me as well. So it's my need to clearly give information to my team internally, but also share that information to our partners and our vendors and those working alongside of us that our scope of work actually impacts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to ask you this. How far in advance do you get into the picture of a production of the show? How early do they bring you in?
It really depends. So when I work, for example, as an LMG project manager, even there, from project to project, it changes. So it really depends on the scope of work. A lot of times I come in, like, for example, the HP one we were on, Dondi, I came in a month or two before. And some I don't. Sometimes I come in right at the last minute, which is a little bit more clunky, but we all get through it. As a technical director, I can come in up to a year ahead of time. It really, truly depends on the scope of work.
Wow. I had no idea it was that far in advance sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, there are times, there's a couple of shows right now where I was part of the RFP process that are for next summer. But they wanted my input on how to build the RFP, the proposal.
Yep.
So that when we did get to execution, it wasn't, well, here's what we've sold, but we don't know how feasible we can deliver it. Yeah. And again, that's where I have so much respect and admiration for those folks, because they're looking out for their own well-being, but they're also looking out for the quality of the show they're delivering. And I love that.
All right. So everything that you learned was on the job training?
For the most part, I treaded water in the deep end where my toes never touched the ground. I will say that with full confidence. And that's okay. I'm a good swimmer, apparently. I tell people I have my master's degree in experience. I don't have a college degree. I never went to a trade school. I never went to a place like Full Sail or Coil or any of those things. I was hired. I worked hard. I asked questions. I volunteered for the crap jobs. I stayed late. Sometimes I didn't charge for it. I took, back in the day, Dondi, you probably remember, and this is going to date us, but back in the day where we were all on flat rates, I took flat rates all day long. And I probably in my mid-20s, somebody asked me this very same question, like, how did you seem to know a lot about what you do? And I said, well, of course I do. I ask a lot of questions and I work really hard. And they said, well, what keeps you coming back even on the really rough jobs? I said, because I always walk away learning something. If I haven't learned something today, I haven't done my job. And I plan to live every day of my life learning something.
That is great advice right there. That is great advice for sure. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm like, if only it's all about perspective on how you see the job, right? But you're going into the job because you want to take something out of it. You're going
Absolutely.
in knowing that you're taking something out of it. That's really good advice for sure. So what would you say for someone that wants to advance their career, right? Or someone that's going into, so a newcomer into the industry as well. What things do you think they need to, are there any certain classes or are there any certain things that they should take or programs or online programs that they should do that would help them as a project manager?
Well, as a project manager, what I would say is figure out and make sure that dealing with people and dealing with organizing information is really what wakes you up in the morning. Because if it isn't, project management might not be for you. And I only say that because that is 80% of the job is people and information and how to make both of them work together to deliver a product. The other thing that I talk about as project management, and I'm just going to throw this in here, Dondi, is there is a line, and Terry Higgs from Think Rigging is the first person I think I told this to long, long ago, probably 12 years ago. He said, what is your vision of project management? I said, to me, it's a 2-part job. It's the project and then it's the product. So basically the project is all the way until that truck backs in and the doors roll up. Now it's time to deliver. And it's my job to take that project phase and make delivering the product as easy as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now it's like, all right, we've been doing all this prep work. Now it's time to do this. Let's get dirty and get down and do what we said we were going to do, Yeah. And how important is it to collaborate with all the departments? Meaning, because here's the deal. So when I first got into corporate world, coming from TV, it was night and day because this is the way I see it. What's important is different. The priority is different from TV to corporate world, right?
Oh yeah.
So when you
100%.
You know what I mean? So when you come in, you're like, oh wow, this is totally different on how it works. And for me, because I came from sitcoms and game shows and live TV, so the pace is like this. And then when I got into corporate world, and it was like
glacial.
Oh, I was like molasses. I'm like, oh no. So it took for me to adapt into it, and but corporate world has changed. Corporate world has definitely changed in the 20, 30 years, man. It's totally different. I mean, it's leveled up its game
changed in the last 5 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, post-COVID is completely different.
Now that you say that, though, let's talk a little bit about. I'm gonna skip a little forward a little bit, but emerging technology, right? Mm-hmm. Even in your role, right? I mean, you've seen how much technology has changed, right? How important is it to stay up with it? You know, especially you in your role, because you deal with every department, right? You deal with every department. So you kind of have to know a little bit about everything, right? So how important is it to stay up with it?
I think it's very important. And part of that is because I'm a genuinely curious person when it comes to technology anyway. I have had the pleasure of breaking technology to make it better on a TV set. And I don't know if you saw it, Dondi, but Fox Alternative Entertainment did one season of a show called Alter Ego, where the singer it was a singing competition. So think American Idol, right? But the singer wasn't on stage. Their AI generated avatar was.
Yes.
And I was the technical director and technical producer behind that, with supported by a massive team working for a really wonderful company. But the amount that I learned in that vacuum has made me aware of so many things when it comes to the fact that we are modernizing every facet of our industry. And it is beginning to weave a different tapestry that we have to navigate together. For example, one thing we learned on that is, in order for the virtual lights to work, we had to network them with the game engines. And it was networked incorrectly once, which broke everything and set us back by like a day. And the lighting team didn't know what was wrong. We didn't know what was wrong. Once we found it, we were all like, oh, well, that's good to know. So sometimes keeping up with the progression of our technology means you're going to witness breaking it. And I would encourage us all to never be afraid of that, but to remain curious and open-minded and ask the questions. Like I am no lighting designer. I really am not, but I do understand Kelvin temperature, Kelvin levels, and all the things that affect my camera shot.
Right.
But I'm never going to come into conversations when there's let me rephrase how I'm going to say this. As we begin to advance technology in all of the lanes of our industry, lighting, LED, cameras, video signal, the way that we control screens, the way that media is produced, and how we use the media and the content. All of those things impact one another. And one of the things that I have kind of worked into my routine, so to speak, is having the dialogue of, I'm asking these questions to understand. So how is my frame rate and my camera frame rate affecting your lighting watch and the LED wall? How is my frame rate affecting the way that your video is playing back? Because now everybody touches everybody, whereas before it was a whole lot more siloed. But as the technology begins to continue to modernize and get more sophisticated, we have to collaborate more, because they're starting to impact one another more specifically, more intentionally, and more often.
That's great. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. And I don't know if I'm putting you on a spot, but talking about emerging technology, right? As a newcomer getting in the industry, from what you see, what would you say is probably like a good position or good way to go? What in lighting and video and because gaming is getting so involved, where would you direct somebody to say, hey, this is up and coming, you should definitely learn this?
I think if you are a person who is super, super jazzed by media, learn LED. Once you know LED, you'll understand, and you'll have to have the dialogues of how camera angles affect your walls, how to process it. You have to deal with screen management. but it's also an easy place to get started. Let's say you're a technician who is super, super jazzed about audio. Try to become one of those A2s or A3s that can follow along behind really seasoned system tech. A systems tech who understands the difference between now and 10 or 20 years ago. One of the things that I come up on a lot is our newer friends in this industry don't have, you're going to remember this, Dondi, they don't know analog, they know digital.
Yeah.
They don't know composite. They don't know
Right.
They don't know component, they know composite, right? But when you find someone in your ecosystem that does understand that history, they're a gold mine.
Right.
So if you can show up and be, again, volunteer for the crap jobs. Yeah, I want to be the fiber guy on this show. I want to run all of the 15,000 meter fibers that connect the truck to the LED walls. Or I want to run all the 600-foot SMPTE fibers. And I want to understand why it can't lay over feeder. Like, it's doing, to be honest, being open to doing the harder, simpler things as a newcomer actually gains you a lot of opportunity in my eyes.
Especially because, like you said before, you said that I'm using the audio person, the girl that you said, now she's going to be my first call. I always tell people, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching, and you're a decision maker. You're a decision maker for your shows. Like, you have say, like, I want this person on my show. I want this person on my show. So it's always about, the saying, you're only as good as your last job. So you better make sure every job you do is good. You better be on point 100% on every job.
Absolutely. I had this very same dialogue with my better half this week. He just completed a show that was crazy. He was brought in at the last minute to save it in a way, and he's a production rigger, just so you know. But when he went to staff it, we weren't able to take our first phone call people because everybody was booked. I mean, we had 3 weeks to find people. So we took who was available and who had the skill sets. Were they the right personalities? Maybe not. But they knew what they were doing, and we had to go with who we could find. One of the things we talked about during that show was it's the hard ones that bring out the best and the worst in you. It's what you do and how you choose to manage yourself through those hard ones that makes the difference. Every show is an audition.
Every show is an audition. I love it. How about this? How can individuals progress and move up the ladder in this industry? How do you think people can move up?
Show up early, work hard, volunteer for the crap jobs, and ask questions.
Love it. All right, Beth, so here's my next question. How important is networking for an individual, especially in this industry? How important is networking?
I honestly think it's very important. You, just like we say, every gig is an audition, or you're only as good as your last show, right? It's how you carry yourself that changes things as well. It's important to know that staying in front of people and in front of people in your best light as your authentic self is important. I try to stay in touch with all of my clients at least a couple times a quarter. If I'm not on their calendar, I at least send them an email saying, hey, hope you're good. Is there anything you want me to hold for the next year? Because, depending on where you are in the industry, you start booking yourself out 6 to 9 months. And so staying aware, like back to that curiosity thing, right? If you take that into the networking world of our industry, staying curious about who's working with who and why, and who's in the camp of whatever industry, whatever corner of the industry you want to be a part of, who's working the most there. For example, if you want to do AI, then who's working in AI a bunch? Reach out to them. I have to commend my business partner and better half, Joseph. He continues to stay up on social media on companies we've never talked to. he searches them out. He wants to know what they're doing, who their clients are. How can we help? Are we a good fit for them? And he sets up phone calls where we do discovery calls. Do they all result in a job? No. But they do result in visibility. They know us now. We know them now. If we have a job that they are a good fit for, then we have another resource we can call. If we're a good fit for one of their clients or their projects, now they have someone to call. So staying curious about who's out there and who's doing what is kind of a cool way to keep yourself a little bit current in the industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it brings up a very good, I mean, you kind of answered them, and I'm still going to throw the question because how a lot of people think that, oh, I'm just going to put all my eggs in one basket, and that's actually the wrong way to go about it, right? So you answered it. You're always making cold calls. You're always, or you're always reaching out to others for new clients. How many clients would you say is good to have?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard question.
That's a hard question. It's not easy.
It is because you never want to not take a new client, right?
Right.
I would say don't stop until you have a good half a dozen in your back pocket. The reason why is depending on who they are and what industries they work in, their calendar years are very different. So, for example, there are some shows where they do their biggest show in May, and then they don't really do anything big until the next May. They do little ones around the year. But then you have another client who their biggest show is in September. So it just gives you the diversity to be a part of whether they're all big or not. Everyone's fiscal calendar is different. And so, and the fiscal calendars, if you don't know what they are and you're new to this industry, research fiscal calendars because you'll want to understand what those do and how they affect our industry. Because medical fiscal calendars are different than technology fiscal calendars. And that's an easy way to sort of research how you want to diversify your client field. If you've got everybody in one bucket of one side of the industry, meaning, you know, all of my clients do medical shows, then you're going to have a really, really lame fourth quarter.
Right. That's absolutely true.
Right. But if you diversify and you have tech companies and you have medical and you have arenas and you have festivals and sports, I mean, they're all different calendars. So that's why I say a good half dozen, because that's more than one per quarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Which brings me to my next question. Which is your favorite to do? And it's sometimes it's hard. Like when people say, oh, what's your favorite job you ever done? I can't say that. I give them a favorite for each arena that I work in, not just one. Yeah. You know?
Yep.
But can you name one?
I can name the style of show that I really love to do. And this is just going to prove the point, Dondi, that I'm a mutant. I'm just going to warn everybody. Like, I have proven this year, not only to everyone else, but also to myself, that I am a mutant. I like the ones that have more than 150 people I have to organize and more than 12 full production rooms. I like the big ones.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're putting yourself in a whole. You separate yourself already. You're like, oh, no one wants this job. Yeah, that's what I want. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, I do. One of the reasons why I love it is it gives me it keeps me on my toes, where I get to push my limits organizationally. I love it when I have dozens of people involved in one project, to where I get to manage not just their personalities and their approaches to the show, but also their technological input. Because to me, I think it's like, I make the joke all the time. There's a prep day that we did this earlier, about a month and a half ago, where I had 37 engineers in one room for one day. And I give Greg Heflin, who is one of my work spouses, all the credit, because so much comes out of that day, but it is also a very terrifying day to be a part of. Because I'm like, you do understand, we put them all in one kitchen and said, make shepherd's pie. Do you know how many different recipes come out from that? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds like you work best under pressure. That is when you are at your best.
I have figured out how to exceed boundaries and really over deliver under high pressure. Is that a great thing? Not always, because there's a fair amount of stress that comes with that, but I do love it. I love the challenge. I really do.
Love the challenge or love the rush?
I love the challenge.
Okay.
The rush gets annoying because the pressure is a lot. It's not about adrenaline for me. It's about taking a big bucket of stuff and making it into a show, and making it into a show that is done very, very well. That to me is a fun project to take on and something to sink my teeth into. And outside of those, the ones that really get me going are the ones where we're pushing the limits technologically, where we're all standing around at 11 o'clock at night, scratching our heads going, how can we do this? You know, those, honestly, Dondi, I made so many amazing personal discoveries during a time where professionally I was under the gun because we were literally breaking technology every day. And that was during Alter Ego. I walked away from Alter Ego understanding so much more about who I was and what I wanted. And part of it was because I was taken out of my comfort zone in every aspect. I was living in a condo in LA. I was alone, and I was breaking an entire VR rig every day with my team.
And that show, now I had no idea you were on that show, because I know that the show you're talking about it, because they did one season, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if it's renewing?
I don't think they are renewing it. The ratings on it were very, very lukewarm, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
I kind of expected it, to be honest. Unless you're someone who's big into gaming and big into AR and XR, what we were doing looked very contrived.
Right. No, technically, it's like you said, you're breaking barriers. Technically, you know, I'm sure that could even be put up for an Emmy. Technically, you know, for the things that you guys have done.
Yeah, we were nominated for a couple of them, which was exciting.
That's awesome.
But
that's awesome. I hope you guys get one.
Thanks.
So now that you told us that story, here's another story I'd like to hear from you. Give us a story of one that was just drove you crazy. Like this one I'll never forget because of this.
Which one am I going to choose? Because there's
That's
so
funny
many.
That you have to actually think about it.
I do.
It's not just one.
I'm going to take one. I was working as the LMG project manager. I don't remember if I was staff or not. It doesn't matter. Basically, we had 2 massive shows in Vegas back to back. We did Tableau, and then we were going straight into Autodesk. And I had an LED team, and they had an LED team, but it was the same 4 trucks of LED tiles that needed to go to both shows. And I was in town getting ready to start prepping the show. And I was getting ready to prep a different show. And my boss at the time, Tim Sauerman, came out to the floor and said, "Hey, are you willing to join this meeting? We want your input." And I said, "Sure. What am I walking into?" He's like, it's how do we get out of Tableau and into Autodesk? And I went, "Oh, okay." So I walked in, sat down, and everybody was stressed out about, this thing is coming back at 10 o'clock at night, and it's got to go over here at 8 o'clock the next morning, or however it worked out. I think I'm absolutely wrong on what I just said. But basically, there was under 36 hours to turn these tiles around. And I said, "Well, this is easy." And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, "What?" I said, "I'm just going to take my prep day that day and take my LED team to the loadout. And we're just going to go load it out and put it in a truck so it can sit overnight so that we can receive it on site. And so we did. And they brought me way more tiles than I needed at Autodesk, way more cable, but we put the show up and then I sent everything home. And the operations team trusted me. They said, as long as you're okay with that and your LED team will do that, then we're behind you 100%. We will take your lead on this. And they did. And we got it in, we got it up, we got it teched, and we got all the stuff back to the shop. Inventory was reconciled, all that. But the shows were both successful. And that to me was incredible. What I'm now going to talk about is the chapter 2 of that show, which I don't know if everybody knows this, but there are a lot of LED tiles have different color profiles. And by that, I mean some of them air orange or red, and some of them air blue or green. Row tiles specifically have a black in their system that you can't match. And the way that the Autodesk show happened is the pitch behind the stage, to avoid moire, which I know you know what that is, Dondi. They went with a way higher pitch. They went with a 2.6 mil behind the stage, but a 5 mil everywhere else to avoid that moire problem. The problem is one was processed one way, one was processed another, and the walk-in loop was violet in hue, which is one of the hardest colors to match on LED, is purple. Because if your tiles air different colors, so if one airs green and one airs orange, getting violet is really hard. So we had been messing with color for a day and a half, and the EP, Jeff Wilk of 10Q, had it with us, and I don't blame him. I would have had it too if I were him. But we basically showed him a video, and the blacks were all wrong. And he's like, that's not black. You have to fix this. We are 10 minutes to doors. And I went, wow. Hang on. So we fixed the blacks. We were 5 minutes to doors. At that point, we had a green wall in the middle and purple walls on the outboards. And I was like, this is a show failure moment. So I put my D3, which if people don't know what that is, that's a media server. It's the machines that feed the content to the processors for the LED wall, if that makes sense. So I had gone upstream of the E2 to where the content lived. I said, I've got no other choice. I said, I need you to tick back on the green until these walls match. And we have to get this done in 4.5 minutes so we can open doors. And so I was back with the D3 operator. I had my LED lead in the front row watching, and he told me when to stop. And I said, how much time do we have until doors? He said, 27 seconds. I said, someone put human flesh on every screen right now. So they found a window where they could. They flashed it. No one looked like a pumpkin, and we opened doors on time.
Wow. With how many seconds to spare?
I very promptly shoved my heart back into his cavity. I think we had about, I don't know, less than a minute before doors.
Wow. So. The stress of that, those 5 minutes or so, or before doors. Ugh. Well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, what I was going to say is that was me thinking on my feet, me knowing I had people smarter than me surrounded me, and me going, wait, who can where else can we go? So I had stayed so curious in my job to understand signal flow and where things came from and what handles people had where in order to get there. I would never have gotten there had I not remained curious and receptive to all the information around me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, like you mentioned, though, that it's all about the team that you have around you. That it helps you get through those things. And you put your trust in them because you know that they're good at their job. You know what I mean? Which
Agreed.
That's why it's so important, especially when you have say of who you want on your shows. It's for that reason, for times like that, Yep.
My first phone calls are the people that I would 100% put my reputation behind.
Yeah. And that should speak volumes to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. For sure, because especially when they're slow or they're looking for work, I know they have to call you. They got to text you and say, hey, is there something? You know what I mean? Because especially with dealing with with bigger corporate event companies where they just have a labor logistics person, you're not going to get very far as opposed to just calling the PM on that job and saying, hey, help me get on this, or can I get in this? Do you have any shows that I could be on? That's all networking relationships, right? But doing a good job, right? That's why it's very important. But you were mentioning some other things because you said, back to back in Vegas and then going to other shows. Now I want to talk about the balancing work home life. That's in this industry, it's super hard. Having a relationship in this industry is super hard.
It is.
So how would you describe, or what would you tell someone in the industry how to manage that time, or how do you manage the time? We'll do that first. How do you manage your work and home lifetime?
Well, I'm going to be very honest and very transparent here, not like I haven't been the whole time, but this is not an easy subject for any of us to discuss because we're not good at it. None of us are.
Right.
I, for 10 years in my career, identified myself with my job. Part of that was because everything else at home was very hard. And it was not a place that made me happy. But these days, that's very different. And I am in a place personally that I have never been before. And that's being truly happy. In the last 2 years of my life, Dondi, so many people see me on show site and say, you look like a different person. And I'm like, yeah, happy seems to look good on me, apparently. Good thing I tried it on at 39 years old.
Awesome.
But that also reprioritizes things. And I think COVID did that for a lot of people as well. We were home. People put their children to bed. They made dinner. They fired up the grill every Tuesday. They did homework with their children when before they were in hotel rooms halfway across the world. And it's changed a lot of our approaches to it. For me personally, I am not only incredibly happy on a personal level, I'm also met there too. And so I have the opportunity now to really intentionally put balance as a priority, because I also know that as an industry leading TD, if I don't balance myself, I can't give my clients the product that they know they want from me. So it's not necessarily just a choice. It's something I have to do. One of the things that I, in the past probably year, have done, I've gotten into running, which I love. I love to be outdoors. I love to exercise, and endorphins are always a good thing. But lately we adopted a couple of dogs, and getting lost in the woods on a hike is one of my favorite things. I try to put myself to bed at a reasonable hour. I suck at that sometimes. I don't suck at it others. But I try also to, I usually have 3 or 4 books going at a time. That whole remaining curious thing doesn't just apply to our industry. It applies to me learning about me. I do daily Stoic podcasts where I listen to, ages old perspective on things that in modern day make a lot of sense. I try to stay in the moment when I can. And what I'm doing lately on my calendar is trying to not do so many back-to-backs, because what I realize is at the end of those back-to-backs, there's almost like a percentage of me that's been sacrificed for a paycheck. And it's a hard thing to do in our industry is to say no. But at the same time, I also know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I've been sprinting for 12 years. And so now it's time to maybe take that marathon approach and start to say, okay, given the fact that I am now in these roles requiring this amount of pre-production, how many of these am I going to stack up against one another? Because at some point your quality of life goes down when you're 9 hours a day on conference calls. You're staring at life passing you. And nobody wants to do that. Can we do it for a season? Absolutely. Do you want to do it for a decade? I can tell you from experience with full confidence, no, you don't.
Yeah. That's very good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those, they're going to rest in the fact that if you've become so let me back up. One of the things that I say to people that are starting to really blossom in their careers is, don't be afraid if they don't call you back, because they'll call. But there's a phase in which you go through where you're forgettable. Then you become unforgettable. And once you reach that unforgettable standpoint, you're on their call list. They're going to call you. But even if you're forgettable to someone, saying, "Hey, I'm booked, I can't do that," is not that's not closing the door of a relationship. That's merely prompting someone to say, "I called 3 weeks out, maybe I should call 3 months out later next time."
That's priceless information you just gave, because no, I say that because look, I'm a workaholic. I'll be the first one to tell you that.
We
I'm
all
a
are.
workaholic.
We wouldn't be
If it
successful
wasn't
in
for
this
my
industry
wife,
if we weren't.
yeah, if it wasn't for my wife saying, "Hey, we need to take a vacation," like it's not like I don't like being on vacation, because when we're on vacation, I'm ready to plan the next one,
Right.
But it's
Right.
it's like when you're just in work mode, you're in work mode. You're just like, I'm just like, go, 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 go. And she's the one that has to like level me out. It's good to have someone that will do that, because if not, I would just go. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's just the way it is for me, But
Yep.
to avoid, and that's what we need to avoid burnout, is take that time. And it seems like you figured that out. You figured that out as like, I gotta have me time for me.
Yeah.
But in turn,
I
I
mean,
know I can give I could deliver better for my clients if I take that me time.
absolutely. What I've learned is being my best self is not just delivering a good show. If I'm my best self, you get an even better product. And I think that's something that probably took me longer than it should have to acknowledge. But given my personal past, that doesn't surprise me. Um, but I also know the same people that keep calling me are the same people that understand that I need balance. And that is a hard thing to tell yourself when you're new in the industry. So what if I could give the advice to those that are coming up in this industry is sprint when you can, pace yourself when you can't, and know that balance needs to be a priority, but may have to, like, there are seasons where you kind of got to sacrifice the balance for a second. We all get it, but you can't constantly sacrifice it. I did that, and take it from someone who knows that doesn't do any good.
Yeah, very good, man. You are just killing it. You are just killing it with the information. Seriously, I want you to end with this too, for the newcomer and the person that's just looking to advance. Give them the steps, or let them know what they need to do to succeed in this industry.
The first thing I will say is work hard. And even when you don't think you've got the skill set, is be transparent with people about that. Like, hey, you want me to be an LED tech. I mean, I'm going to work hard and ask a lot of questions, but I'm going to tell you, I had a tech tell me this, I don't know, sometime this summer. He was like, "This is my first show." Oh, I think it was a local. He said, "This is my first show and I don't want to mess anything up." And I said, "You just made a priceless statement to me." And he went, "I did?" And he kind of got afraid, like I was going to fire him. I said, "No, I know exactly what you need." I said, "Ask me all the questions. I will make time to make this okay for you. But you got to ask me the questions. Just be transparent. Be curious, be transparent, be on time, work hard. And just take the mentors as they come, because mentors are priceless. I would not be sitting here if I didn't embrace and soak up all the knowledge that my mentors offered. And the last thing I will say is, as you gain your feet in this industry, give all of the information back. I learned that one the hard way. I thought I had to own it all and manage it all. And truly, if you hire people and surround yourself with people that are better at what they do than you are, there is no better recipe for success.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I thank you. Seriously, you gave some gold nuggets today with the information that you said. Especially, I know the viewers that are going to watch this are going to go away with a lot of information, and a lot of good information about the industry and how to deal with people and how to deal with themselves. You know what I mean? It's going to be invaluable. So I thank you for taking the time out. Seriously, I really do, because I know you're busy, and I thank you for doing this for us.
Absolutely. I'm going to pull out one more thing, which is this shirt that I'm wearing. It says Unstoppable. Short story, but basically I was in one of the most stressful seasons of my career this spring, and I was coming off of a loadout into a pre-rig, and I was exhausted, of course. I hadn't slept. I took a bio, and I was washing my hands, and I looked up in the mirror, and I saw my face and the word Unstoppable underneath it. And in that moment, I realized, I've worked hard, and I've gotten to a place where I am unstoppable. And I'm never going to forget how it feels, how the power of happiness and accomplishment is so unstoppable to someone individually. And Dondi, I am all about paying it back. So if I can be a resource to those that are watching, I absolutely will make that time.
Oh man, well, thank you so much. And I know you're just going to keep killing it. Seriously. You really are. And until we see each other face to face, I want to say thanks. All right? I really appreciate it. All right. We'll see you.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.
Right. Beth had some really good advice for those of you looking to get in the industry. Some of the key points she mentions were ask questions, get mentors, work hard, and take the jobs that nobody else wants to do. But most of all, make sure you take time for yourself to avoid burnout. This way, your clients can get the best of you. So until next time, I'm Dondi Sanchez, and this is Media Hub. Are you a filmmaker or content creator with a vision that demands the best? Then look no further than IPGRentals.com, the ultimate destination for audio, video, lighting, drones, and support gear for your productions. At IPG Rentals, we believe in the power of collaboration. Our gear becomes an extension of your creativity, bringing your vision to life. And with our tagline, Our Gear, Your Vision, we're not just a rental service, we're your production partner. Why choose IPG Rentals, you may ask? Easy. We bring quality, reliability, and an extensive range of top-notch equipment. From industry-standard cameras and audio equipment to state-of-the-art lighting and drones, our gear is meticulously maintained to ensure you get the best results every time. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.ipgrentals.com. Our gear, your vision.